right, welcome everybody to day 2 of the 10-day living yoga challenge. Happy to have you here this morning. Today we're going to be exploring the second of the 5 yamas, which is called Satya. And Satya can be translated as truthfulness. So we're going to take a look at a few different ways that we can explore the concept of truthfulness out in the world off of our mats. And first, I want us to consider the idea of being truthful with ourselves. And so number 1, when we think about all the daily interactions that we have, are we allowing our authentic and truthful selves to shine through? So are we giving truthful opinions when we're asked for them? Are we clear about what we like and don't like? Are we truthful in sharing our thoughts and the feelings that we have? Are we aligned with our principles and living those? So are we removing ourselves from situations or from people that don't align with our authentic truth and the expression of that? I think also it's good to look at the idea of, are we truthful with ourselves about who we really are? Not who we wish we were, not who we think we should be, but who we really are in each and every moment. And just kind of a funny story I have about myself that goes along with that idea is just a couple days ago, I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine, and I had shared an Instagram post of someone that we mutually know who had picked up her life and moved to a different state and was gonna start to get involved in some really cool endeavors, and someone who just appeared to have a lot of like freedom and flexibility in their life. And I had made a comment saying like, what am I doing wrong that I'm not out there like traveling and doing all this really cool stuff? And my friend reflected back to me that that really wasn't in alignment with my personal truth. She's like, you would hate living that way. She's like, you absolutely could if you wanted to, but the truth is, you know, you wouldn't enjoy not having your own space. You wouldn't enjoy being on the go all the time. You wouldn't enjoy not having that kind of stable job situation to be, you know, coming back to every day. And it was just such an interesting moment for me to really look at that idea of, you know, of course my mind like glorified that type of lifestyle, thinking that's who I want to be, that's who I should be, that would be so cool. But ultimately, that really isn't true to who I actually am at this point in time. So it was an interesting exercise, interesting thing to observe. But in addition to that, you know, being truthful about what brings you joy, what fills you up. I think when we look at the idea of truthfulness, we can also have a conversation around people pleasing. So are we saying things and doing things that don't align with what feels true for us because we want to make other people happy, because we don't want to let them down, because we don't want them to feel hurt? You know, there are a lot of really good and noble reasons why we do things to please other people. But ultimately, we really want to be careful of, if we're truly living Satya off the mat, we want to make sure that we're not doing things just to please others, but rather we're staying true to ourselves. Additionally, I want to share something from Eckhart Yoga. They have a great website that you can find with a simple Google. And they talk about the concept of Satya in relation to being separated from our thoughts and feelings. So when they think of the idea of truthfulness, they share that, you know, recognizing that you are not your thoughts, you are not your feelings. Those are things that are fleeting. Thoughts and feelings come and go, they rise and fall at different points throughout our day. And so being able to really separate ourselves from those thoughts and from those feelings and observe them with a little bit more neutrality is a way to also live the practice of Satya in your daily life. And I thought that was a really interesting take on that, and I wanted to share that as well. And then lastly, being true in our words and actions towards others. And I think this is a huge one. So number 1, an easy way we can do that, I think, is following through on things. So if we say that we're going to do something, then we make sure that our actions are in alignment with those statements that we made, that both our words and actions are aligned with the truth of you know, what we've committed to do or what we say or intend to do. Additionally, I think this idea of not making things up if you don't know them. So I can think of, an easy situation that we might see this play out in our lives is, let's say you're at work and a customer or a client calls in and they're looking for information. And of course, we all want to seem very able and competent, and we want to be the experts and the authorities, and we wish we had all the answers. But the truth of the situation is that many times in life, we don't have all the answers. So, instead of making something up or, giving a vague type of answer, you could just approach it from a more truthful standpoint and say to a customer or a client, I'm not really sure the answer to your question, but I'm gonna do my best to figure it out and get back with you. That's an example of how we could see that play out in life. I think additionally, looking at that idea of not making things up in a social situation is also important. So if we're looking at Satya, truthfulness, when we're in social situations, I think a lot of times things can turn into a gossip session, or sometimes even negatively, like some type of slander. When we might say things about people or make assumptions about people that aren't the actual truth. We don't actually know what the truth is sometimes in those situations, but I'm guilty of it, and I'm sure many of you are as well. When we're retelling a story about something someone did or a situation, we tend to embellish the details a little bit, and we might make up a few details here and there to make things seem, funnier, more outrageous, or more crazy. So just trying to make sure that when we are dealing with others, or we are referring to or talking about others, that we are doing our best to do that in a very truthful way. And then I think lastly, this kind of connects back to truthfulness with ourselves as well, but this idea of being truthful about our mistakes, being truthful about our flaws, really taking responsibility for all of our words and all of our actions. Again, recognizing this idea that making mistakes and having flaws isn't bad, it makes you human, but we just want to make sure that we're owning those things and being truthful about when those things are occurring, because that way we leave more space for growth and for change and for learning, which is really the ultimate goal here in life, in my opinion. And then lastly, I just want to point out this idea that as you think about this concept of Satya, truthfulness, and how you can live in a more truthful way off of your yoga mat, I want to encourage you to remember that these yamas that we're going to be exploring over these first 5 days, they kind of build on one another. So it's not that, okay, yesterday we talked about ahimsa, non-harming, and we're done with that. Today we're talking about truthfulness. No, they're always going to be intertwined with one another. So when we think about truthfulness, and I think this deals with being true to ourselves, telling ourselves the truth, recognizing truth, and this can deal with being truthful with others. We want to keep that concept of ahimsa, of non-harming, in mind, because we want to make sure that when we share truths, we're doing so with compassion, with kindness. We want to make sure that our truth is an act of love in a way, and that our truth doesn't become something that threatens or wounds or harms other people or ourselves in any way. So those are just a few ideas that we can think about living this concept of Satya. And today's challenge is going to be answering a few different journal prompts. And I'm not going to explain all 3 journal prompts here. You can look in today's email to get more information about that. But I encourage you at some point throughout today, take 15 or 20 minutes, sit down with a journal or piece of paper, and really look at those questions and statements that I've posed in the email today, and just write down the answers as freely and truthfully as you possibly can, knowing that you don't have to share those answers with anyone but yourself at this point in time. So I encourage you to dive fully into that. I think it'll be really interesting to see what you end up writing down. So thank you all so much for being here with me this morning. Have a great day.